like we got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander.
Hello and welcome to Coordinated Fire Episode 33, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast where we ask, what exactly is so super about yonder bowl? How are you doing?
I didn't even read it in the show notes before you said it out loud. I'm doing great. You know, from brief experience of playing Blood Bowl, this whole football thing it's tame.
Yeah, not violent enough for you.
It's not violent enough.
So we're missing Sean this week due to some technical difficulties. He should be back next episode. Fingers crossed, but it'll be just the two of us for tonight.
Just a wee bit of internet issues. But yeah, we can, like we typically do while Sean is away, you and I are going to rant a lot about mission mechanics and layouts.
Yes. So for today, we're going to do just a quick recap of what we got up to this week. We'll talk about the rules update that AMG dropped, and we will talk about the new mission. So
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So, Kyle, you got your narrative league game in, and it was eventful. You want to talk about
eventful. Yeah. So again, we are running through our key operations league. And we're also doing the campaign rules alongside of that, as we mentioned. So I locked in a DT for my special person. Titus, what's that actually called?
Death Trooper Escort?
No, I know Death Trooper Escort. What's your campaign person called?
The Veteran Unit?
The Veteran Unit. I'll remember that one of these days. There's a lot of just terms that's added to this.
I mean, I find it totally believable that you forgot what DTE stands for, so...
I have just said DTE since the first time I read the card once. So I chose DTE as my veteran unit for this one. So I played Veer's Moff with all stormtroopers, with both Shores and Deaths, with Stormtrooper Sergeant under Veers. This was my first time playing any of these. I actually just got a couple of them built. For what I'll say about the list was a ton of fun. I am continuously impressed with Moff in current state. Just again at the level kind of we've been playing at lately, he seems very strong. Veers basically just gives stormtroopers infiltrate. Shore troopers like that and like to be on objectives.
Stormtroopers are good.
I know you've played this a few times. All the attacks felt great. You know, consistently having, coordinated offensive?
Yes.
On Sergeant? Yeah. Consistently having that up and active was great. I would love a Stormtrooper primary, but I know that seems unlikely.
So what's going to happen is we're going to get Phasma, and she's not going to be a Stormtrooper, and we're all going to be sad.
Yeah. I'm excited to see those cards, because either, they go the route where things have Stormtrooper, and, they're built to be played like a half and half kind of mix, or they're going to go the way I would probably guess, which is things in that era are very locked to that era, and maybe they only have First Order as a tag or something like that. We'll see. But if I were a betting man, they're not going to let us have fun with it.
Yeah. But anyway, we're getting a little off track.
I'm okay with that. We're not off track. This is what happens when we're left alone, Sean. But Stormtroopers were a ton of fun. This is actually, I think I want to take this and play this at the next crit event. I'm going to keep playing around with Stormtroopers in various forms throughout the league. Next up on my list is to get Krennic up and running, because I have not built him yet. Massive Krennic. That's as for playing this mission. So in all fairness, Josh and I did not do our homework ahead of time. And as I'm learning with key operations, that's important.
It's very important.
We both had our lists ready, and we ended up doing the heist mission. I don't remember what it's called. It's got heist in the name. We're very professional, to be clear.
Yeah, I had it up. Hang on a second. It is Foil the Heist.
Foil the Heist. So we did Foil the Heist. Overall, I think this is my favorite key operation I've done so far. Mechanically, we used Hondo as our target person.
Your smuggler.
Or it is a smuggler. I was gonna say. I thought it was a smuggler. Yeah. So we used Hondo. Josh was playing Cassian Hera, which I thought was pretty cool for that. I think we landed on a decent and thematic thing, rescuing Hondo from the clutch of the Empire. That smuggler moves around a lot.
A lot.
A whole lot. Now, this did end up going my way pretty quickly. I was able to kind of lock down 4 out of 5 of the objectives most turn.
Yeah, for reference, you were the aggressor, right?
I was the aggressor, yes. So I was holding on to Mr. Hondo, and Josh was trying to rescue him and was playing the Sentinel. Veer's forward deploy allowed a pretty strong start, which was very nice. Having the shores kind of ready and reserved to activate when I wanted ended up very relevant. You know, honestly, Veer's own activation was pretty solid. I just kind of held down the terminals, which led to the shields. What am I trying? I'm trying to power them up. Yes, it led to the shields being powered up within 3 of my activations, and
Which,
then
for reference, seems very quick.
It was very quick. It was very quick, and I don't think it had to go this way. I think part of this was Josh and I learning the mechanics as we were playing, which definitely is a thing here. Overall, it's the same kind of thing I'll go with each time I played a key operation so far, which is this was Shatterpoint with more steps. Comes down to the same thing. Who's holding more objectives? Who's doing this? With some variance back and forth. Ended up on when it flipped to the stage 2 of the heist. My first roll, which I got to roll, I was contesting the smuggler and holding a decent amount of the terminals, and rolled like 8 dice and spiked pretty hard on the damage on the stage mechanic. So this ended pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't think you guys were a full way through your deck yet, and the game was over.
No, I think 5 activations each sounds about right. Maybe 6 for the whole thing. Again, there was some variance that definitely went my way a couple times in there. We had to step something back at one point because we misread how a stage 1 worked for moving the smuggler. I'm excited to keep trying these. Titus, I want to thank you again for the narrative effort you've been putting into this campaign. We are wrapped up with round 1, and you've kind of done, well, I guess, Titus, I'll pass it to you for where we're at with the Key Operations League. And we're wrapping up round 1, and you handed us kind of a narrative for round 2, and you did the pairings.
Yeah. So I just want to mention one more thing with the Foil the Heist mission before we move on. There are some pretty drastic typos in rules, and that was part of what caused there to be some difficulties this week. Because, yes, for reference, going into stage 2, there is the first card says stage 2 on it. And then when you're moving to the next card, it reverts back to the title for stage 1. Now, if you're looking through it in the document, it's pretty minor because they're all in order. But the problem we ran into was I printed them off, yes, for Kyle and Josh. Then they were going through these loose pieces of paper, and I don't know if it was just you guys decided, oh, well, this is stage 1 is probably in the wrong spot, or they kind of got scattered around while you were reading them. Bit of both. You guys started using some of the stage 2 rules during stage 1 because, yes, it's titled stage 1. So for anyone else who is playing the heist mission, keep them in order, probably like staple them together how they print off, something like that. It would also help to just get a marker and correct it, because it can drastically affect the lay of the game. In this case, we determined, like when we figured it out, we determined it would have been helping Josh anyway. So, yep, we just kind of went, like said, well, we'll just keep playing as is. But it was definitely a moment of me being confused by the questions you guys were asking me and saying, no, that's supposed to be struggle 2. What's going on? And it took a while to kind of untangle because we were mid-game when we made that realization.
Yeah, we walked back a little bit, but overall didn't have a crazy impact. But yeah, to exactly that, we were going through the pages and kind of figuring, okay, this is what you're going to do at the end of your turn. This is what I'm going to do at the end of my turn, and passing them back and forth. So they definitely got mixed up. And I'm like, this clearly says stage 1 with the title of stage 1. So we were doing it. And honestly, it didn't even look like it didn't belong there for the mechanics we were doing anyway. But overall, I actually liked the mission.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Was very cool. Definitely one I would like to try again now that I understand it better post game.
That feels like the refrain we keep saying as we go through these, where it's, I have learned this mission, I would like to try it again now that I've played it, but we only have so much time and there is a whole lot of these to go through.
There is, and I think that's partially why I know we've shared some thoughts on some initial design choices and how we're feeling about trying these so far. We're kind of holding off for, a grand, this is how I feel about key operations until we've actually got a good enough time with it, finish up this league, and then we'll definitely be sharing that kind of as we go through. But I'm reserving my opinion. I want to give this thing a fair shake. Before kind of making a call on my feelings about it, because each time I'm like, there's something here I really like. I will say, I love the campaign rules.
Yes, the campaign rules are very cool. We haven't actually put them into practice yet, but it is something I think maybe with a little bit of tweaking might take over to just like a standard league if we know it's casual, that kind of thing. Like, because those advantage packs in general are just really cool. And
yeah, and like converting them to apply to regular Shatterpoint missions would not be difficult.
Yeah, obviously you wouldn't make that rated or anything, but as just a fun league to do at home, I think that's my biggest takeaway so far is I want these in the game.
Yeah, I think the campaign rules are really cool, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Again, we're gonna keep rolling through these. We're gonna keep trying. And I'm excited to see where those goes. But I was passing it over to you to what is round 2 looking like for the league?
Yeah, so round 2, we've got, so first round, we tried something out where basically each team would pick a mission and then they'd decide who's going on that mission, and then the opposing team would decide who's going to defend that mission. And it was, I thought it was cool in theory. It ended up being too clunky for us to really bring to bear well. So this round, we're just going with randomly determined pairs, tried to make sure people were playing a different role or a different player than they did last round. But it's teams of 3, so someone's got to double up. But I tried to tie them in to what happened last round and gave it a bit of a thematic spin to it. So I'll actually probably end up posting the document in the Discord just if anybody cares. But it's we've got Josh playing against Ryan doing Jailbreak. We have Kyle playing against Brandon doing Cause a Chain Reaction, and then myself against Sean doing Crash Landing.
So you're speeding through this. I think you did an incredible job on this, and I think you should read them.
All right. So, following a failure to escape with confidential information, the rebel forces led by Captain Cassian Andor must free their captured companions from an Imperial-held prison facility in orbit over the planet Ariadu, defended by Jedi Master Mace Windu. Meanwhile, a Death Trooper strike team makes its way into a hidden rebel base on the planet Dantooine, intent on causing a chain reaction in the base's power generator. Unknown to them, the base is currently under occupation by the enigmatic Mother Talzin and her closest supporters. Then, on the planet Raxus Prime, a lucky shot by a rebel alliance has taken down an Imperial shuttle. As a rebel special operations team headed by General Solo scrambles to capture any survivors before they can recover, the Grand Inquisitor rouses himself from the wreckage and begins efforts to salvage the situation.
I want you to know that my excitement went up like times 10 when you posted that today.
Well, good. I was really on the fence as to whether people would care or not, because
you got a lot of praise from Josh in there too. I'm excited. Like this,
good.
This is what a narrative campaign is for. This is what key operations is for, and pulling it all together is just really cool. Again, maybe feeling iffy on the last game, but this definitely pulled me back in on, all right, we're going somewhere with this. So I'm hoping this continues. Again, I know you'll keep doing this, but just I want you to know, for all of us that are playing in the league, and hopefully those listening, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been fun coming up with the little story bits. However, that's not really, it would work either way. If you're not the storytelling sort of person, you can still just play these. You don't have to get all flowery with it. But if you do like that kind of thing, it adds a little spice to a campaign.
So far, that's the redeeming quality.
Yes. All right.
Awesome. In other news, where are we at? Oh, you also got to play this week.
Yes. I want to kind of pick up on that when we get to the new mission, though, because
sweet.
most of the discussion is going to be about that.
Okay, so we also got a rules errata update this week. The most significant changing some rules around reserving in the order deck. We also got Hazvizsla errata changes, but I think talking about those should wait for that to be cleaned up a little.
Yeah, they had some issues with the document. Paz ended up with some MCP icons in his text, but in general, from what they've said,
Hazvizsla MCP character confirmed. I'm on board.
Yeah, we're getting a crossover. No, as it reads right now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but from what they said in the announcement, it's supposed to be the same, just clarified as to when he checks range during the trigger, so that's really no big deal.
Oh, we've been playing him the whole time, just making sure that's clear.
However, the reserve rules have been changed.
Are some actual changes with a minor change with, I would call, some big implications.
Big for certain factions, anyway.
Yeah. Yep, certain factions. So what the change is basically, simply put, you can only put one card in reserve per. So this means that for anything that is doing things and swapping into reserve or anything like that, you have to have a card in reserve going into your turn prior to that for that mechanic to function. This hurts a couple things. So Separatists have the most order deck manipulation across their units. Just starting with Kraken and Kalani are able to go into reserve for free. This doesn't directly affect them, but it means that when you put them into reserve for free, you're going to be forced to activate the next card that comes up.
Yeah, which isn't usually a problem until we got the Rift box.
Yes.
Where both Nosor and the Aqua Droids can put stuff on the bottom. Now, the Aquas, it has to be another aquatic tag, so it's not as full list dependent, but with Nosori, he basically has Obi-Wan's patience ability, and he, before, could just replace that unit and put them on the bottom, and you could keep digging down into your deck. This was a major benefit for the Separatists because while they are quite weak, they had a lot of order control, and it kind of gave them an identity in the current meta that was, at least they had something, and this update very much takes that away.
Yeah, so again, just for reading No Sarai, when you reveal this unit's order card, if you have an order card in reserve, you may put that card on the top or bottom of your deck, and if you do this, put this unit's order card in reserve. No Sarai is not a great activation.
No.
So making sure you're doing his activation at the right time is a really important part of putting him on the table and playing him. So again, if you already have a card in reserve going into your turn, this is no problem. You flip that card that you had in reserve, you replace this with that card, and that card goes on the top or bottom of your deck. Simple as that. Now, where this was able to play in a fun space is if that next card you flipped was, say, the Aqua Droids. That would allow you, so their submergibility is when you reveal this card, if another allied aquatic unit, this card is in reserve, this unit may use this ability, put the order card in reserve in the top or bottom of your deck, and then put this unit's order card in reserve. So this would allow you to, start of my turn, spend a force and put, say, my B1s in reserve. Probably not the best example, but let's run with it. You then flip No Sarai. You're able to put B1s to the bottom of the deck, put No Sarai in reserve, and then you flip the Aqua Droids, and then you could again swap the Aqua Droids into that reserve spot, put No Sarai in the bottom of your deck, and you now have really good order deck knowledge of knowing the bottom two cards of your deck are B1s and then No Sarai. Right, Titus? That's how that all works?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Or how it did work.
How it did work. And this was effectively, again, able to take some rough activations and play around with them a little better. This also made it really safe to put like Kraken or Kalani with their free reserve in reserve. Because putting a rough activation in reserve to flip No Sarai is a really rough position to.
Yeah, because like you don't want to be activating No Sarai until the end of the struggle. One, because he's not generally great. Occasionally you'll get enough movement out of him where it's worth it, but by and large, he wants to go last, especially because he can't be shot if he's in the deck or in reserve. So like you're very much incentivized to not go with him until the last activation of the deck. But now you reserve something, you have to go with the thing that you picked up because you can't put it in reserve. Special exception for Lando because he can tuck himself directly into the deck and doesn't ever touch the reserve zone. But that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And speaking of the B1s, they also have a problem with this because when they reserve, they can go directly into the deck. And like the other things, you could then reserve the next character because there's nothing in your reserve. So they're also hurt by this. It's like Separatists took a major hit here. And for a faction that this was pretty much the only thing they had going for them, it's just, it sucks because it's like kicking them while they're down.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's a good reason why this had to change, but there's some major collateral damage here.
Well, so I think people really quickly, when this box came out with No Sarai and the Aquas, realized that playing General Kenobi and No Sarai in the same list, words as written, could infinitely do this in a loop.
Yeah, because you would just, oh, I pulled No Sarai, I put Obi on the top of the deck.
Yes.
Oh, I pulled Obi, I put No Sarai on the top of the deck. And yeah, you're just kind of like shuffling the two back and forth.
Which allows Obi to continuously jump and heal your entire list. And
position himself anywhere on the table.
And to be clear, from my knowledge, nobody ever actually did that at an event.
Everyone realized very quick that, hey, this is not intended.
Yes.
I think I said, if you know enough to know how to do this, you know enough to know why you shouldn't.
I believe that this change, very simply, is a lot of things paying the sins for that mistake.
Yeah, it's possible they have something else coming up that might touch on this, but the most likely answer is that, yeah, it's a belated reaction to that combo, and it hurts Obi lists, but I think Obi is strong enough that he'll get by. Like the Separatists, like I said, is just kicking them while they're down.
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of leaving Obi to last because, yes, this is kicking Separatists while they're down. Their kind of unique gimmick at this point is a lot of order deck control, and this limits that a lot. It makes me hope again very strongly that there is some stuff coming for them for Separatist players to be excited about. I know, like, again, they are some of my favorite painted models. I love getting Separatists on the table. So I am excited for what the future has in store for them. I'll give it that, at least. As everybody listening knows, I have played General Kenobi more than any other primary in this game by a very large margin. And the ability to do this was a big part of what I liked about it, because playing with order deck variants and having more control is not something that a lot of things in this game can do. That is pretty unique in putting the player agency into a little more control. And where Shatterpoint's a game where you're interacting moment to moment, you're identifying board state, and you're seeing what the best you can do with the activation you've been provided. And that is part of the puzzle of Shatterpoint. I think some of these order deck abilities allow you to go in more with a dedicated game plan, that you're playing some odds on whether this thing happens or this thing happens. But the more you're able to control that, the more you can go in with a game plan. When it comes to the current competitive meta state, Boss and the Delta Squad paired with Obi has been my favorite current meta iteration, and a list that I've really enjoyed playing and haven't touched in a while because I promised everybody I would put it down. But I've made a lot of arguments in various places, including here, that I think this is one of the strongest lists in the game. I think it's well positioned from a meta standpoint. I think it has game into Cassian. I think it has significant game into Cassian. And one of its major weaknesses is that it didn't fare well in the mirror match against Boss. This only makes that a wider breadth of a matchup. This can potentially hurt that Cassian matchup because basically you want, again, and this is speaking from a high-end competitive level. Otherwise, I think Kenobi's fine in all the lists that Kenobi was in. But when you're looking at engaging Kenobi from a top meta level, you basically always want him to get his dash or jump, or it's dash, from patience
It is a jump.
before it's a jump. Okay. You want him to get his movement from patience before he does his own activation. And this typically led to, if my opening flip wasn't an optimal flip, I would basically go in a reserve, and I'm basically fishing for Shatterpoint or boss to do an opening. And this gave me the comfort that if I reserve that card and then flip Kenobi, I'm able to do the whole thing. I'm able to get another shot at pulling another card and looking for that best optimal opening. And now, again, talking high level competitive play, I do not think you can take that risk anymore.
No, because Kenobi's a real bad first activation.
Like horrendous.
And he was one of the only bad first activations in the list. So being able to guarantee you didn't have to go with him allowed you to bring that dedicated support character.
I basically have to, again, the patience put a card on the bottom of my deck will basically not happen at this point. Like it is off the table as a mechanic, other than some edge circumstances where I really have to reserve something early. But again, I don't see it because I'm basically waiting till I flip Kenobi to reserve Kenobi himself.
Yeah. I could see some corner cases. You're playing first contact and you can put something in reserve, or you're playing OB Veers for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I was a very strong advocate that I think the OB variant was the strongest version of Delta in current meta state. And I just think that is Hunter now, full stop.
yeah. It's definitely the more aggressive pairing, but it doesn't have that dead activation problem.
Yeah.
Which is suddenly a question.
Yeah. And again, to be clear, this isn't going to stop me from playing Obi. I love him a whole lot. But one of the key advantages from Ed again at a level is just the consistency of the order deck that he allowed in this particular pairing. And it's off the table. And again, if that's intentional, cool. My guess is still that this is a side effect of an overlapping ability that has some consequences. And I think on paper, this is a small change, but I think this happens more than you would think.
Yeah, it's definitely not, I shouldn't say definitely. It doesn't feel like well, this is how it was intended sort of thing, because we've had a rules update, like we've had a pass at things previously. Obi is a first wave unit. If that was something that had to be cleaned up, they would have done it then. It feels like this is a reaction to something that they don't want in the game. And this is the Obi Nosar combo is really the only thing I can think of that would break the game with this in particular. Maybe they saw play patterns and said, oh, we don't want people being able to dig 2-3 cards into the deck. It's not like this has ever been super competitive. Like, I don't know. Like, Obi was always good. And part of that is the reserve mechanic, but I think more of that is his identity.
Is definitely knowledge and defense is why he's here. So good. But yeah, I think there are some wide implications of this. Now, as my last thought on this, and something I will be exploring now, I don't have a competitive event in my future for quite some time, and I'm expecting the game to be in a very different position by the next time that I am attending, because our closest locally that's going to be coming up is the Table Bound Open, which I am hosting and won't be playing in. So my time window
after that?
Battle for Breath is after TBO.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 weeks after, I think. So pretty close.
So they're close together.
Yeah. But yeah, Battle for Breath is going to be the next where I need to think of a list and practice up for a list, and I expect the game to be in a different state by the time we get there, and I'm hoping in a little more of an open state. But if I was going to a competitive event today, I do think I'm taking this. I love this list. I think I would be legitimately considering first contact.
Which is a big statement coming from you.
Which is a big statement coming from me, and it's not that I think it's a good mission, but it is that I've always liked this list on the mission. I think it has all the tools that is needed for first contact. It can pull a wound when needed. It can hold an objective when needed, and just waiting for someone's Shatterpoint ability to pull Obi out of deck and put him in a reserve is a huge advantage for getting this deck rolling and putting me in a comfortable spot. So I legitimately, I think I would build for first contact.
Yeah.
I think it would dictate what my other list is.
And like, if you do end up having to reserve Obi the hard way, then that Shatterpoint becomes get my force back. So
get my force back, which that list also desperately needs. Yeah. Yes.
Either way, you kind of, it shores up the weakness that is suddenly in the list.
I think first contact does struggle one. First contact does exactly what this list needs to shore up some potential weaknesses. And then again, it can play the 2 and 3 mechanic very, very well. Yeah. So
And as I've noted about the mission before, yes, you only get the force refresh and the reserve mechanic struggle 1, but generally those are most important when everything's in deployment because you're spending a lot of force on movement. Once everything's kind of gotten to the middle, you'll spend a force here and there on movement, but it's not as necessary. So it doesn't punish you for losing those abilities struggle 2 and 3 as much as you might think.
Yeah, to be clear, flipping Fixer, opening of my deck, putting him in reserve because I have to, and then flipping Kenobi at this point is a literal nightmare that I will have every night when I go to sleep. But with that said, speaking of missions, the new mission is out there to peruse. I think I've seen it posted in most places at this point. Titus, you sent this to me.
Yeah, it's strategic positions.
Strategic positions. Thank you.
Yes.
First off, before we dive into what this mission is and what it does, and Titus, I will pass that to you now that I can climb off my Obi soapbox. I will just say off the cuff, I love this mission. I'm
a big
fan. Excited to play this. I think it checks so many boxes of being different from what we currently have by giving some benefit to things like infiltrate, but not requiring it. I love everything that's here. But Titus, why don't you walk us through strategic positions?
Okay, so we're going to breeze through the actual layout a little bit, but by and large, go look at it. By and large, what you have is 4 corners of the table have all 4 corners have an objective, and then you have a cross in the middle. Yep. They're fairly close together in the middle to where you can contest 2 of them at a time, though obviously they're not active at the same time. So that cross is very tight. And then the corners are within 3 of the side and 3 and 2 of the board edges that you deploy on. So they're fairly spread out, very Never Tell Me the Odds style, and it has a bit of a mix of that tight inner area with the spread out nature of odds, and it gives almost a hybrid between odds and shifting priorities. It's kind of a nice middle ground, and that alone kind of gets me excited because we've had a very polarized sort of mission layout so far, because either you're someone who likes to play shifting and sabotage where everything's fairly tight together, or you are someone who likes playing Never Tell Me the Odds and key operations where everything's spread out and you need a lot of movement. There hasn't been there hasn't been a good middle ground, whereas this looks like that thing. It looks like the middle ground that we get.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of what the distribution for each struggle looks like, pretty much regardless of what you pull on the struggle card, struggle 1 is you're going to have 2 corners active and then 3 points of the cross active. And it's always the 2 ends towards the players and then 1 of the side points.
As a new thing, one of those layouts has a choice that the first player gets to choose.
Yes, the first player gets to choose between 2 different layouts. They're very similar, but it's basically the first player gets to choose which corners are active. It's always the corners opposite of each other. So it's always top left, bottom right, or vice versa. And as we mentioned when this was first spoiled, it very much plays like when you get the X on Never Tell Me the Odds, where you're holding on to a corner point and then everything else kind of goes for the middle. It's a little more spread out, but it still benefits the same sort of lists that liked that on odds. Your Mace Windu's, your Obi-Wan Kenobi Out of Hiding, your Luke Skywalkers, stuff like that, where they have a big bubble that benefits the stuff or the rest of the list, and they have to be within a certain range. But in general, I really like this as a first struggle. It gives you stuff to do where you can have some mobile units, but you can also have some units that are a bit slower, and they all kind of can play a role. It's, like I said, it's a good mix of the missions we've had before.
Yep.
I think Talzin in particular is going to like this as a unit that has struggled to find a place in the current meta because odds and first contact exist. Having this as an option, I think, will help quite a bit.
Yeah, I think this opens up a ton of options that have kind of haven't loved playing on Never Tell Me the Odds or First Contact. Anything that has a limited range requirement.
Yes.
I think Dooku's going to be better here. I think Mace is going to love being near the center of this.
Yeah. Now, something to keep in mind, if you had a list you felt you couldn't play because what if my opponent wins the roll and picks their own mission and they have Never Tell Me the Odds or they have First Contact? That hasn't gone away. Nope. Unfortunately, because of how the game works, you are always going to run that risk. So in competitive play, I don't think this is going to shake things up very much in terms of what is and isn't viable. However, it is another option for you to take with your list. And it does open up some squads that didn't have a good home before. I think this gives them a good place.
Yeah, I think there's lists that are going to love the tactical advantages as well, which we will get to here. And my favorite part of these is that they are consistent.
Yes. So no matter what mission card you pull, Struggle 1, it is always going to be while a character is within range 2 of one or more inactive objectives, it has cover 1. Struggle 2, it's always going to be if a unit activates within range 2 of an inactive objective, each character in the unit may dash, or if they don't, they get impact 1 and sharpshooter 1 until the end of turn. Finally, Struggle 3 is at the end of an activation, if that unit is within 2 of one or more inactive objectives, refresh a force. It's always the same. You get that advantage no matter what card gets flipped. Unlike on Sabotage or First Contact, it's always going to be consistent. You can plan for those tactical advantages, which is very nice because before, there were certain lists that would have really liked being able to count on aspects of First Contact that were a 1 in 3 chance, but you couldn't really plan on it because you had to guarantee that A, you're playing First Contact, and then B, you actually get that struggle layout. Whereas now you just have a 50-50 chance of, do I get this mission or not? And once you get the mission, you get those benefits. And if those are something you need for your list to function, cool.
Yeah. Looking through, just being able to plan for these allows them to be just so much more useful abilities that, again, you can rely on. Just inactive objective cover 1 means that when one of your squads ends up starting on the inactive objective, they're not just a dud.
Yes.
They're a little more defensive than normal, and you can plan that which team do I want to take that risk with, and which one do I want to guarantee. Because if you have any form of extra deployment, middle board side objective that's a little out of reach for regular deployment, again, similar to First Contact or Never Tell Me the Odds. But in this case, that objective is on every one of these cards. So if you're able to touch it, it is your only guaranteed objective. Now, this one's a little closer than we've seen in the other missions. So in this particular case, just having a big base and deployment means you're touching them.
Yeah, you can't do it with a standard base and a standard base. But if you have even one big base and you deploy directly in front of that center cross, you can hit your point. Now, without infiltrate, that's kind of a moot point because you're one of the corners, but it's still better odds than if you just put both squads at a corner. And then you are also closer to the center.
And you're closer to the center. There is some advantage here for.
Yeah. It's not a full 1 to 100 switch like having infiltrate was on some of the other missions, but it is a definite benefit.
Yeah, it guarantees you one, and then you're playing for a 50-50 on the second one. But if you don't have it, you're just controlling one no matter what.
Yeah. So Separatists and Ewoks get a benefit here, as does Wrecker.
Yeah. He's a model, and he matters.
Yeah, and I guess the Stormtrooper zombies will.
Yeah, that will be relevant. I'm glad it just matters. We have not seen the base sizes make a particularly impactful difference in this game so far. Again, their movement's great, but overall, we haven't seen a big impactful reason to have a big base model over not. So having that impact, I think, is a huge win. It's a cool win to some units that may have some difficulties currently. It gives a reason to put some other things on the table that may not have seen. So super on board with that from a design choice. One of the interesting things for me is, based on 2 out of 3 cards for Struggle 1 do have a heavier move to the left side of the board from first player's perspective, compared to the only one that favors the right side from an objective count is the one with 2 choices.
Yeah, so it's statistically better to weigh your left side, but
yes,
you can luck out sometimes.
Yeah, well, honestly, again, if you're first player going into this, you do just favor the left, because even if you don't get it, you can then take the better option because you're first player, so you can take the better option for rapid assault. So if you're going first, you should be deploying left leaning. Which again,
I think even if you're second player, you still want to be left leaning, to be honest. Or I guess it'd be right leaning because you're second player. But
in that
you want to deploy on the side that you are more likely to get that objective.
Yeah. And again, I think it opens up some cool deployment things that I think we haven't necessarily seen. Maybe a little bit with Never Tell Me the Odds, where your back left objective was always on guaranteed, which was pretty cool. But playing with different things for deployment, making deployment matter a little more is just a win for the game. It's a win for competitive play. So it's really nice to see. Titus, did you cover the priority mechanic yet?
No, because we're going to go into Struggle 2 next.
Beautiful.
So Struggle 2, there's a few different things. First one you'll notice is there are 4 objectives active, and 3 of those have priority tokens on them. How priority works in this is you roll 2 defense dice, which is different than how we did priority in the first 3 missions. When you roll those 2 dice, you put a token on each result, whatever objective comes up as that result. If you roll 2 of the same, you put a token on that result, and your opponent gets to pick one of the other active ones. I don't know if there's been a clarification from AMG or not, whether or not you can put it on the one that doesn't have a token. I lean towards you probably can't, but it would be an interesting addition if they could make that the priority point.
Yeah, that's a valid question. I would assume it's one of the symbol points no matter what.
That's my assumption too.
And frankly, we won't get a clarification until this is actually out, because currently this is...
Yes, that said, to get the bonus point, you have to hold both those priority objectives, and you get 1 bonus point for holding both of them. It's not 1 each. It is, you have to hold both points, which I guess is where I mentioned that I played this week with Ryan, and It was definitely a much harder thing to flip both priority points and get that than to flip just one wherever it happens to be. You ended up with a lot more play where you just prioritized holding more points, because scoring 3, even if you don't have priority, is still very good and makes your opponent's next activation harder to get their priority. If you happen to get priority, it's a nice bonus, and obviously it weighs where you go, but it was a little more relaxed, because you didn't always feel like I have to get priority or I just am falling behind. Just holding the majority of the points felt much more viable.
Yeah, scoring 3 without priority is still a win. It's still good. It's still a solid turn. I love this.
Yes.
As again, this is an exciting new mechanic. This is a different way to approach priority. Again, really just solid introduction to the game for just changing up the current state in some different ways.
Yep. So another couple things for
Yeah.
Struggle 2. This much more heavily favors the corners and the horizontal points of the cross. The other thing I would note is that the tactical advantage, which in this case is calculated strike, is the one where you get to dash a unit that starts at an inactive objectives. Firstly, that can be just one of the characters in the unit has to be on it. They both get the dash, which is really nice. But the bigger thing to me is because of this added mobility, if you are going first, Struggle 2, you are much more heavily favored to win because you can almost guaranteed get 3 of those points unless they happen to be ones your opponent is already contesting. I think Struggle 1 is going to be a bit of a slog. Struggle 2, I think, is usually going to be fairly quick in the favor of whoever lost Struggle 1.
Yeah,
That's not to say you can't go 2-0, but
if you can guarantee a support activation going into this, you're in a really good spot.
Even a single unit activation, if you have some kind of tactic that can move somebody and then you can hit pretty much anywhere on the board, you should be able to contest 3 points unless you had you really just end up with a bad layout.
But Titus, to your point, I think this is going to look really similar to how I think we all feel about shifting in a lot of cases, where Struggle 1 happens and a lot of the times you are going to very quickly give up Struggle 2.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional. This is kind of a catch-up mechanic. And then going into Struggle 3, you don't have anything that really helps someone catch up from bad positioning. So it's a little more even than shifting is, in my opinion. I know shifting doesn't have any mechanics like that, but this is more spread out.
Yeah, I will say that the tactic in Struggle 2, even for the player going second, that you've already won Struggle 1, you can afford to give this up. And if you're going in and saying, I don't think I'm going to be able to catch up on the struggle, this tactic is also going to help you set up for knowing
Yes.
your layouts on this mission is going to be very, very important, because if you're able to take that extra movement you're getting by being on inactive objectives, you're going to be able to touch whatever things you want, which is again setting up for a successful Struggle 3, which works kind of in the inverse of what you see on 2 here, where it's going to favor the vertical part of that cross. And I think bottom left corner is the most common.
It's bottom left, top right from both perspectives, I believe.
Yes.
So bottom left, top right is the most common. All the corners you want to kind of skew towards when setting up for Struggle 3, but it's very much the vertical points of the cross and then bottom left, top right. Those are the high value points.
Being in control of this flip is incredible.
Yes. Occasionally it might not go great for you if you get honestly they're fairly well balanced in terms of what pops up. If you have the ability to set up for Struggle 3, you're going to be doing pretty good for yourself because there is a very high likelihood of certain points activating.
Yeah, and with the tactical advantage of refreshing a force in 3, one other thing to consider is while you're in 2, and if you're giving up 2, you can more comfortably spend force for some extra movement in 2, knowing that you'll have some opportunities for refresh in 3.
Yeah. It is harder to get that refresh than I expected, but it's something you have if you need it. It's rough that it is at the end of your activation, but
well, because it's at the end though, so I haven't looked exactly at the minute. How far apart are those center objectives?
You can contest the center objective and be on you can be within 2 of the center objective and still contest either of those center points.
Okay. Cool.
So that is very doable. But when you take terrain into account, and if you're out of position just trying to get to the point, and then you have shoves and pushes and all kinds of other stuff to consider, it's not like a guaranteed thing by any means.
This mission is going to reward positioning more than I think anything we've seen so far.
I would agree. I think First Contact is pretty close because knowing where to position yourself to adjust to when the struggle flips
Yep.
is important on that mission. But this gives you a very concrete, immediate advantage to good positioning.
Titus, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I think it looks great. I've had the opportunity to play on it twice, both times with Ryan. The first was with the spoiler cards, so we had a fixed set of Struggle 1, 2, and 3. But then we played with the leaked cards just this past Thursday, and I really like it. It's a lot of fun. It feels very well balanced. Like, this feels like what I wish shifting was, to be honest.
Yeah, it makes me more and more curious if we're going to see mission rotations at some point in this game. It is interesting to me that we have seen the last 3 missions that have come out have this kind of advantage that you get when you have an infiltrate unit or something that can forward deploy in some way. I would definitely be interested to see another mission come that has no advantage other than...
I don't think you're ever going to get a mission that doesn't have an advantage, because even on shifting, infiltrate's an advantage.
Sorry. An advantage directly on controlling points off the hop.
Yes.
I think there's definitely still space that they can play around, again, the shifting sabotage design, and I'm excited for new missions to come out. It'll be interesting to me to see if we do see missions rotate out. Do we end up in a world where we only have things that do that? And I just, I'm curious to see where that goes long term. I don't think 5 missions is anywhere near a space where we need to rotate something out. And especially with shifting priorities being what comes in the core box, rotating that out of competitive is a weird territory.
Yeah,
So who
I
knows?
don't see that ever happening.
No.
As much as I feel like shifting is the consistent problem
Polarizing.
child.
Yeah.
It's what allows the most degenerate openings. Because it's in the core set and it is the simplest, I don't think it's going anywhere.
I think I take shifting more than anything else still. I like me some shifting priorities. But again, if we weren't doing the narrative league right now, I would just be grinding out games on this.
I might still be doing that. We're in every 2-week round, so you have an
the
off
opposite
week.
weeks. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. I am very excited to get this on the table. I know you've had a couple chances to try this. I haven't had a game yet, so this is all theory as we're going through this. But I think this is the most excited I've been for a new mission since we saw Sabotage early on.
Yeah, I could see that. I was also very excited for Never Tell Me the Odds, but every mission that comes out is exciting, frankly, because it changes how you can play the game.
I was excited about First Contact until I played it. Guys, First Contact is fine. I literally just said I was going to play it. No, it is what it is. New mission, Titus. I think that's going to fill an episode for us.
So. Oh yeah, I think we'll have to wait for another day to get to our next primary spotlight.
That's okay. There was some exciting news, and that is something I will cling on when we get it. It is nice to see some new stuff into the game. Titus, do you want to offhand what is our release date for this officially?
I have no idea. I know they supposedly got it this week overseas in certain locations.
March 13th. So we've got about a month.
Yeah. So for now, how we played it was we just assigned a dice to each of the layouts and then rolled a die. Yeah. Or you can print off a card, however you want to do it. Once it actually comes out, go pick it up. I think it's going to be well worth the price. I think this is probably the best balanced mission we've had in a while. Now, granted, I haven't had a ton of experience on it, but yeah, I'm very excited.
I'm willing to do that bluff called and for it to be an absolute mess. But for now, I am excited. I think what I love is that I don't look at this and say, oh, there's going to be some things that are really bad on this mission, which
I think there's multiple play lines too. Like you could just pile everything into the center, or you can try to control the outside. And I think both options are pretty viable. Obviously, you can't just completely give up one or the other, but there's different ways to play the mission.
But the high mobility can take that more castle-y center list and force it to go outside of its comfort zone, and that more defensive castle list can force the opponent with the high mobility to come into the zone, the aura that they want to be in. Man, I'm excited for OB2.
Yes. And there's a lot of things I'm excited to play on this, to be honest. Like anything that likes forcing people into the middle is gonna do great.
Especially force refresh at the end of the game. Yeah, this might be the little nudge OB2 needed to come back into current meta.
Yeah. Like I think the current meta is still very difficult for him because of the huge range threats we have. But
Oh yeah. To be super clear.
Yeah.
Like both Boss and Cassian are also going to be very good on this mission.
But they're very good on every mission.
Yeah, because they are not mission dependent. This isn't going to be a huge shakeup to our current competitive meta, but I do think this is going to give a really good mission choice to some things we don't necessarily see.
I think that's actually a very valid point to bring up for all the people who are looking at these missions all excited saying this is going to change how we play. It's not. Until something changes with how we pick missions, no single mission is ever going to change the meta on its own. If you had, say, 4 of them come out that all favored one sort of thing, maybe that might skew it. But by and large, because you can't guarantee what mission you're taking before you pick your list, you're always going to have to go with squads that are good on everything. You can skew it a little bit because you know what you have. But are you really going to leave your good or bad game likelihood to a 50-50 dice roll?
Yeah. And for sure. What I will say is that if you're planning on going to Adepticon, you're going to Worlds, I expect to see a pretty high saturation.
Yep. Know how to play it.
You need to know this. I think it's going to have the new and exciting factor. I think it is a mission that you can go in with a solid game plan compared to, say, First Contact, which is going to make people way more open to play it in competitive play. I expect, we saw last year that Sabotage Showdown ended up being the most played mission by a very large margin. And I expect this to eat a lot of the share that Sabotage holds.
Yeah, I would agree. It's well balanced. And I think that that's going to be a huge draw for people because they can play any list they like into this and feel good about it, which is kind of what Sabotage had going for it, which is what Shifting had going for it.
Yeah, totally agree. Again, as always, link to the Discord will be in the show notes. If you've got some chances to play this already, share your thoughts. Definitely excited to hear them. I know we're going to be chatting quite a bit about this mission and our experiences with it as we go forward, and we'll keep you guys updated on the league.
Yeah. And if you're missing Sean, hopefully he'll be back next episode.
Yeah. And I guess otherwise, put out a call last week for anyone that's done some of these key operations and your thoughts on them. I'll put that call out again. If anyone's been playing these, we'd love to hear some other people's thoughts and their experiences with it. So keep on playing Shatterpoint.
Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.